we need to get men behind this. We need to get men advocating. We need to get men changing this, because what's good for women is good for men. And what's good for all of us, humankind, it's good for the planet. And the planet is suffering. We need to turn things around. But the only way we can do that is by men getting behind it and men advocating. So much harder than women.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the skill shortage, and this is one of the most pressing challenges facing the MSP and tech industry, but it's often one of the least discussed. With MSPs being this backbone of IT, keeping businesses secure, connected, many of the younger workforce in particular, the new generation of graduates and tech professionals, are not seeing this industry as their first choice. So today we're setting out to explore why that is, and more importantly, how can we think about changing that from both culture and purpose to also thinking about the new wave of automation. What is this going to mean? And also the brand perception image that we need to change for MSP as an industry, and talk about how do we make this industry, the MSP space, a magnet for tech talent again. So joining me today is someone who's been leading this conversation globally from many perspectives, and it's Jane Frankland MBE. So Jane is a cybersecurity advisor, an author, and the founder of the Insecurity Tech movement, which has transformed how many of us are thinking about diversity and inclusion in tech. But Jane, that's my quick introduction. Why don't you tell us in a bit more detail about the work you've been doing, so that our community can better understand you?
Yeah, no, thanks for that. It's amazing, Myles. I've been in cybersecurity for nearly 30 years now. So I came into the industry by building my own penetration testing company. And it was one of the first in the world. One of the first female-owned penetration testing companies. It was certainly the number one in the UK. And so I spent a long time in the industry. But what I've done more recently is I've done a lot of work with women through the insecurity movement, which came from a book that I wrote nearly 9 years ago. And that was all to do with why a failure to attract and retain women in cyber is causing us to be less safe. So very much looking at it from a risk perspective. And it was really ahead of its time. It was before the Me Too movement. And it came when women really needed to hear that message, because they were feeling very disconnected and very alone and very wronged. You know, I don't belong here, that type of feeling. So it really helped them to realize that they weren't alone, and it was very empowering for them. So from that book, I created the Insecurity movement, and that's done some incredible work. I've put over 442 women through my scholarships. So I've leveraged my influence sitting on the board of Black Hat's EU committee, the executive committee, and to get women to the Black Hat briefings, which is incredible. That's a value of about $800,000 US. Amazing. And that work continues. So I very much stand as a champion for women and other minorities out there that might be excluded or bypassed. But really my message more certainly today, because it's evolved from the time of writing that book, is about unity. It's about doing this together. And certainly the insecurity movement is about the mission. It's not dependent on gender. Mm-hmm. And then the work that I do now that pays all of the bills is I work as an influencer, and I hate using that word. I much prefer thought leader or brand ambassador or evangelist. But I work with brands, some great big brands, as well as some smaller brands, to help them build trust, to help them build engagement, to be seen more, so that they can have meaningful conversations and ultimately drive revenue.
Amazing. And I mean, it's such an important skill to have, right? To actually be able to have that presence in the workplace, but also then in the community at large, because oftentimes how do you gain your business and your influence? Well, it's
Yeah.
through these social channels. And obviously you're a big advocate for LinkedIn as a professional networking site. I understand, right? Like
Yes.
that's your
My number one.
home, your number one.
Yeah.
So tell us, I mean, in brief, a bit about kind of what the session is that you're going to be speaking about here. Just for
Yeah.
people to understand, obviously it's about gaining your influence.
Exactly. So I'm speaking about how to raise your influence, really why it's important that you build your voice and that you amplify it. And so I'm kind of going through my journey, how I became an influencer, how I'm an introvert. So it's and certainly if we're talking about speaking from the stage, years ago that was my greatest fear. You know, it really was. So shy, introvert, doesn't like to make themselves visible. Very much prefer to be behind the camera, to be writing, and that's what I'm going to be speaking about, and how you can use it to build your business or to build sales or to even serve you as a passion project, you know, like I've done really with the insecurity movement. And I think really influence is a skill that we need more of in cyber. So we need to be able to influence decisions. We need to be able to raise awareness, to break down complexity, and to be able to evolve, because the world is changing. We now have AI that is scaling the good and the bad, and we have a really challenging situation with attackers exploiting us.
Yeah, and 100%. I mean, it sounds from what you're saying like a lot of that lies in the softer skills that we all must work on, because the technical, you know, it's something that can be learned. But when it comes to the softer skills, some people have it in bags, and then some people, they need to be taught and how to kind of lead those conversations and gain influence through communication, advocating within their organization. And often when we're talking about even like the skills gap, a lot of young people who are struggling to get into jobs, a lot of it comes down to the communication skills, the confidence to have that influential profile, to get out there, to get in front of people. It's so multifaceted, you know.
This is it, and it's really interesting because I was having a conversation earlier about soft skills, and soft skills are necessary, but the value that is placed upon them when you compare them to technical skills, especially in a technical domain, whether it's cyber or just technology, are lower. So they're then, from a status perspective, they are seen as being much lower, softer. Maybe those are more attributable to women, maybe than men. Women have them in abundance, generally speaking. I'm not saying that, but from a perception wise. And I know that change begins in language. I really think that we are going to have to start changing our language when it comes to soft skills. And I think what we need to do is actually rebrand them to human skills.
Yeah.
Because if we rebrand them as human skills, we're not going to devalue them because we're humans.
Yeah.
So human skills v tech skills are going to be more equal.
Yeah.
So we're going to give them more attention. And we're also going to, and because of that, we're going to develop them. We're going to invest in them. And we're going to make sure that people become better at them. Because in a world where we have more technology coming at us, more AI, we're going to have to get better at the human side of things.
Yeah. To stay relevant, right?
To stay relevant.
Yeah.
Stay relevant.
Yeah. To stay in the role. Yeah. I think that's a really good starting point for diving into some of the questions I've got here. Because we'll expand on AI and its impact. We'll talk about women in tech as well.
Yeah.
So before we talk about fixing the skills gap, I think it's quite an important place to start is to think about this perception of MSP as an industry, this idea that it's a kind of a back office kind of support operational role, fix it when it's broken. It's not sexy, it's not innovative. So where does the issue lie here? Is it a storytelling problem that we, as an industry, that we need to change, or is there a deeper cultural shift that needs to take place?
I think it's both.
Yeah.
It's both. We need to get out there. We need to improve the perception. So that's where like brand ambassadors can be really useful. Again, like raising your influence, like going into your community, going into your schools, going into colleges and universities and other businesses as well. Because it's not just a case of like inspiring the next generation and making sure that they understand what it is that we do. But we're also looking for the pivoters, the career pivoters, because there are plenty of them. Like, how many people do you know that have come in from having a different background or a different first career? So I think we've always got to be working on that. We can't be complacent at all. So we've got to be actively looking for talent, spotting talent and developing it, and really being active from that brand ambassador or evangelical role, so that there's that understanding of what it is that we do and the potential, the opportunity that is available in our field. And then again, once people come into our field, especially the younger generations, we need to make sure that we are working hard to understand their needs and develop them. Yeah. I know so many people come into the field and they're set up for failure. They're not set up for success.
Yeah.
Sometimes it could be because they're meeting a quota, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it could be. So they're kind of left to it. And tomorrow I'm going to talk about something. I'm going to talk about a mindset called high challenge and high support, or the other way around, high support, high challenge. It doesn't matter. But there's something that I see a lot of in the industry whereby individuals aren't supported. So the challenge is there, but the support isn't. So some individuals do really well in environments like that. They're sink or swim environments. And if they learn how to swim, then that's okay. They can do very well, but usually they're paying that forward. So they're teaching a methodology whereby it's sink or swim.
Yeah.
Like, make it up as you go. Make this job, make this role yours, figure it out. And like I said, some people do really well in those environments, but it's not good for consistency.
Mm-hmm.
You want a high challenge and high support, whereby people understand how to develop leaders, how to support them in equal doses. So the challenge and the support is in equal doses, so that they're stretched and developed. And when that happens, you have individuals who are very adept and very good with change, and they're very resilient, and they're very empowered, and they also know how to build other leaders, how to pay it forward. So you get the consistency and the development. So that's what we want. We don't want the high challenge and low support where you've got the stress and you've got the burnout and you've got the attrition peppered with a little bit of success. We want the consistency. So we do need to work on shifting our mindset and making sure that we really understand the needs of those individuals who are coming in. And that can also be from a generational aspect as well. I'm a Gen X, and Gen X are notorious for being known as the generation who are independent. We were sold to as the generation who just did it. Yeah. I think Adidas are the brand who had the phrase, just do it. They were selling to Gen Xers. So we were known as the latchkey kids, raised to be very independent, just get on with it. And so we learn our ways. And I think it's difficult for millennials, so Gen Ys and Gen Zs, the generation that follows, to learn from us, because their needs are very different. They need much more hand-holding. They need much more feedback. And there can be friction with us. And I'm not even mentioning the boomers that everybody loves. But there can be friction because we're irritated by the amount of feedback that they need. Sometimes the amount of hand-holding. Yeah. But they need that. And that's how we keep them. We understand their needs and we serve them as leaders. We need to be serving them and really understanding them sufficiently. We need a PhD in them.
Yeah.
What makes you tick? Because we've invested so much in attracting them. We want to make sure we're retaining them and exploiting them, for want of a better word, not in a bad way, but so that we get those win-win scenarios.
I mean, it sounds from what you're saying like a lot of the challenge here lies in the way that we're leading the industry, and you know that we're nurturing, and that's from educating on the opportunities from when they're studying, when they're still in school, that there is an opportunity here. But then once we get them in, to actually listen and understand how they learn and how they tick.
Yeah. And it's not making them wrong either. A lot of the time we make them wrong. A lot of the time the blame is put on them. It's for us as leaders to take on that responsibility and to make the environment psychologically safe. That's really important, because if we do that, or when we do that, then they are safe to speak up and say, I'm concerned about this, or I'm fearful of that, or I'm worried I'm going to be bypassed. I'm worried that I'm not going to be developed in time. So we need to make the environment safe. When we do that, then we get better performance. You get better innovation.
I guess the question I want to ask then to that is like, and maybe you don't have the secret sauce, but it's the how, it's the why. Like, how do we do that? How do we? So if say we have some managing directors listening in today, wondering, how do I build that culture that doesn't miss the mark? This sort of traditional Gen X kind of led. They're just going and doing it, and they've been doing it away, and it's been working. But now they're looking to grow and scale, and that means bringing in young talent. How do we build that culture to develop and foster those skills internally? What would you say to leaders listening in today?
Well, there is a method. There's a method that I came across, which is called liberating leadership. And it's great because it's really simple to understand, and it gives you a framework for exactly how to do that. So that, I would say, would be a really good step to start with. And if people want to find out more about that, then I'm very happy to have that conversation, with them and direct them to like sources and so on. You've got to have that growth mindset. So you've got to be available for it. You've got to be open and available to do things differently. And the liberating leadership, it gives you that opportunity, because you can learn a framework step by step for exactly how to build those cultures, because cultures come from leaders. A lot of the time we focus on the word culture. It's the culture that's wrong. It's the culture that's wrong. Culture comes from leaders. The mindset, the behavior repeatedly sets the culture. So we need to start with leaders, and leadership training is not sexy. Is it? Culture is sexy. I will become bored with culture soon.
And I also question, particularly for this industry, like, this is not, a lot of it is maintenance. Like we especially for the managed service space, I guess, are MSPs offering enough kind of creative learning opportunities, or giving autonomy to these kind of younger Gen Z talent entering the space? I mean, your space is more cybersecurity. Are you seeing that in your industry?
I think one of the biggest issues that I see with it is on the hiring side. And this is where I know we had a conversation earlier about AI. And I've got three children, older children. One is millennial and the other two are Gen Zs. Now, one of my kids, he came out of uni last year, and he was unprepared and shocked for the recruitment process that he went through. So in some of the cases, with some of these consultancies or tech companies, he was being assessed by an AI tool. So his interview was being done by AI. So instead of it being a human, and then to make matters worse, he was then being fed back an assessment on his ability and where the AI tool thought that he should focus his attention or career opportunity that based on that interview. He was furious. How dare that happen? I thought it was interesting to see just how quickly that had progressed from just a few years earlier. So I think that's the danger with where we are now. Looking at the processes, whether they come from AI or whether they they don't. We've got to take a really honest view of what is going on. I'll give you another example, and this kind of is more to do with the gender aspect, and particularly in cyber. I remember a story somebody told me. They came to me and they said, look, we're not getting women into our organization. We don't really understand what's happening there. And we got a pretty much even split of men to women when we were doing the assessment. But what we found was that the women did really badly in this assessment. And it was online. We had cameras there, like to checking them. And what happened was it turned out that the instructions that they had given the applicants were absolutely fine. But what happened was the men used their resources to check some of their answers. According to the women, the men cheated. Now, the men didn't cheat because the men weren't told that they couldn't do that. Yeah. But the women just assumed that they couldn't because women typically tend to be more compliant. Right. So the fault lay not with the men or the women. The fault really lay with the instructions and really understanding that women may operate in a different way to men. So be really clear with your instructions. Make sure that if you are able to go and resource via the internet or with ChatGPT or whatever tool that you want to use, that is conveyed. And that was the only reason why the men did better than the women, right? Because the men were actually using tools. Obviously, they were able to. The women just thought that they couldn't, so therefore didn't do as well.
It's crazy. I mean, it's a great segue because I really want to talk about this. Is that you've done a lot of work in this space, and women do have their own set of superpowers. That men lack too, right? And so you with insecurity and your work, sort of empowering women, particularly in cybersecurity. I want to talk a bit about inclusion in tech and why this industry in particular does lack on gender representation, but also on the inverse, like what is it that this industry could benefit from by employing more women and bringing them into this space? We've had this amazing event, but you can still see, even though with all the work that you put in, there is not anything close to a gender balanced event yet. So I'm keen to just hear your thoughts on the work you've done and where this industry is today and how women can how we can continue to reduce that gap around women in tech.
I get
very loaded question.
Yeah, I know this is out. I mean, it's like I have been focused on this for quite a long time. And what I have seen and got really frustrated with is the virtue signaling. It's almost like women in tech or women in cyber was a bit of drama. I mean, it's needed. The world, the planet will be safer with more women in the field, and even more so now with AI. It's so essential. Women see risk in a different way to men. Women are really accurate at assessing risk. It's not that they don't take risks; they're just really super accurate. And there are various theories as to why that is, whether it's to do with culture and upbringing, or whether that's to do with genetics. I'm not gonna say one or the other. I'll leave it up to you. But it is really interesting when you look at it. But there is a lot of virtue signaling that goes on, and I do think that what's happened is that the focus on it has been a little bit of reprieve, a little bit of drama. What I saw happen with women in tech was this appetite, this charge, this momentum happening. Certainly when I wrote the book, it was how do we get more women in? I'm fully behind this, I support it. But then for me, seeing a lack of activity and then seeing the attention go on to neurodivergency.
Yeah.
So which is just as important. It's so massively important. The more diverse we are, the better we do. The more creative we are, the more innovative are.
Intersectionality.
Exactly. We need all of that. It just makes us better, stronger. It's more difficult. There's more friction, but we do better. We do better. And then replacing the neurodivergency focus is burnout. So these things are, I hate to say it, but a little bit of drama. They drive the headlines, the media, and they give us a little bit of reprieve. Now the field is so challenged, when it comes to development, innovation, and I'm in cyber, so that's like protecting, our assets, our companies, our societies, and individuals as well. So it's hugely challenged. But I do think that, and I hate to say this, but the world is a man's world. And, I'm a huge supporter of men. I've got 2 sons and a daughter, but it's still a man's world. So in order for us to change, we need men to get behind this. Yeah. So I sat on a panel this morning. It was great. It was so fired up. It was brilliant. Some fantastic panelists, some fantastic research that's been done by a CREST, a fantastic moderator. But they're all women. We need to get men behind this. We need to get men advocating. We need to get men changing this, because what's good for women is good for men. And what's good for all of us, humankind, is good for the planet. And the planet is suffering. We need to turn things around. But the only way we can do that is by men getting behind it and men advocating. So much harder than women. We really do. And then we got to make sure that we are building leaders and building them up. So that's what we need to do. And we need to get really honest. And what I see is that there's quite a lot of bullshit when it comes to the reports. So 30% is seen as a tipping point. And certainly if I look at cyber, there are some reports that are, the methodology is not particularly good. I don't trust the methodology, or the methodology doesn't even exist. It's not available to you. So I want us as an industry, as certainly leaders, to push back and ask for the methodology and to interrogate the methodology and to increase our standards. Yeah. Tell me more about this, and to dig deeper and to make it a priority, which is really hard when so much is coming at us and we're being asked to do so much more. And we're also at risk of our jobs being replaced by technology.
It's difficult to know where to start on some of these issues. And obviously this is a battle that you've been fighting for many years. And, we're still having this conversation that there is work to be done. You talked a bit about this statistic of 30%. And then when you break it down then by sort of job title, seniority of an organization, still so many of the organizations where they're even here today, if you go to the senior board, these are predominantly led by men. So the power, as you rightly said, often is sitting in the hands of men, and we can change that. So when we look at this, the industry of MSPs that we have here today, we're talking directly now to leaders listening in. What are some of the structural or the cultural barriers that exist within their organizations that they can change? What could they do tomorrow that will help advance or even get women entering into their organizations?
One of the first things that I would say would be to have a conversation with your women. If you truly believe that you have built a psychologically safe environment, go and speak to the women in your organization. And if you are not confident of that, then get someone in who can do that for you. I worked as a managing director at Accenture during COVID, and I was there to build applied cybersecurity services for UKI, but also to help them to get to equity by 2025, I think it was. And one of the first things that I did to help them get to equity was I went and spoke to women. I spoke to them as a group, and I spoke to them individually. And what I was able to do was to really establish what was the root problem. Why were women thinking of leaving? Why were women leaving? Why weren't women coming in? What was going on? What was happening? And that was really enlightening. So you've got to have someone who can do that, and someone who your people are going to feel that they can trust.
Yeah.
And that's the first step. And it is truly enlightening, because you need to find out what is the root problem. Because a lot of the time, companies don't do that work. A lot of the time, they're not measuring accurately. Now, another example, when I went into Accenture, was I kind of established what metrics they were measuring and where the issue was. Was it a case of an attraction? You have an attraction problem, or was it a case of you're attracting equal numbers of women to men at these levels, but they're not moving through? So therefore, you can see that something else is going on. Is it the system that's broken? Is it a hiring issue? What's happening? Or is it that they are not developing as fast as men? What's going on? So you really need to look at what you're measuring, the metrics, and make sure that they are meaningful. Make sure that they are supporting your business. And if not, you need to adjust.
Yep. And I think representation, seeing yourself represented in the organization in some form as another senior woman in the organization is so important as well. I know that I try to do this with the agendas that we build, to get more women on stage, for the women in the audience to feel that they can see themselves in that position in the future, that they could get up there and that they can do this. So how does that translate to the workforce, and help elevate women in order to see themselves represented?
Well, role models are hugely important, but I actually don't believe in this whole kind of mantra of you've got to see it to be it.
Right.
So I believe that is a tripwire. I believe that's holding women back. I believe a better mantra is the world is your oyster. You can, if you set your mind to do anything that you want to do, you just go for it, and you can achieve great things. Yeah. So I do think there are some things out there, some phrases that are holding women back. So, for example, of course you can do it. It's ludicrous to think that you can't do it. It's great that we have women on stage, equal numbers, in the workforce, those leaders at every single level, because not just at the top, we need them at every single level. That's really, really helpful. But you don't have to have that in order to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important message for women and other minorities to hear.
Yeah.
Just go for it. Believe in yourself, and get creative. Don't take no for an answer. Don't wait for permission. Find a way. There is always a way. Find a way, and get on with that. Be creative.
Yeah, I love it. And that's a really strong message to leave that point on, I think. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. What we did touch earlier on AI, and I want to kind of come back to looking ahead now. The future of work is a really interesting subject in of itself. We've got agentic AI. We've got, the future of meetings is changing. This is all very relevant to our industry. If you were advising an MSP leadership team today, what one bold change might you recommend for them to think about future-proofing their workforce to prepare for the advent of AI that is blossoming day by day and this shifting landscape? What would be your advice?
It's definitely to seek out the liberating leadership model framework, because that prepares people for change. Yeah. It develops leaders, and it also prepares everyone for change. So you become very good at change as opposed to resistant. Because if you don't get the doses of support and challenge in equal doses, you can become very resistant to change. Like, too much support emotionally and financially feels great. Feels great to work in an environment like that, but it will hold you back because you'll become resistant to change. And that's not the environment we live in.
Change is the only constant.
Change is the only constant. And also change is very natural.
Yeah.
We live in a world that is full of nature. The seasons come and go. Change is normal. Change is natural.
Yeah. For you, like, if we're looking ahead, think like 2030 as the next horizon. What do you see as some of the biggest cyber or workforce challenges? Is it going to be skill shortage? Is it going to be solved by new talent? Can you imagine new opportunities arising for people in the workforce? What are your thoughts?
I mean, 2030 isn't that far off.
No.
And I think it's really hard to even imagine what it's going to be like,
Yeah.
especially in cyber with so many attacks coming at us and so many challenges. If we look at tech in our world, we are so interconnected. We're so interdependent. We have malware, we have mistakes, we have misconfigurations. All of these things can take us out.
Yeah.
If anything happens, climate change, we had it in Spain, we had it in Portugal, the internet went down. So it does become really interesting. But I think the thing that really concerns me is the loss of skills, because AI is taking over so many skills and it's able to do so much. We don't need to code anymore.
Yeah.
No, we can set AI onto code. With our prompts, with our commands. So if we're losing that ability to do these skills, then what happens when? What happens? Are we just invariably replacing ourselves? What becomes our role? What becomes our function? What will the workplace look like? I think that becomes very interesting, I think, and also deeply concerning, because we do need to prepare for, well, how do we cope when things are switched off? How do we rebuild?
Yeah.
How do we get on with things? We can't be so reliant on technology
100%.
that our skills become redundant.
And I think this comes back to what you talked about earlier. There's the technical skills,
Yeah,
and then there's the human skills.
exactly.
There are things that only humans can do for now.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that's where anyone listening in should really be thinking about, is what are the unique things that I can do as a human, to stay relevant as well.
I think it really is. It's about staying relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always being prepared to adapt, always being open, having that growth mindset, but staying relevant is so massively important. And one of the issues that we have, people get complacent. People are so busy and so stretched. You think about training. When was the last training that you had? Literally. Yeah. Or when was the last book that you read? When was the last podcast you listened to? When was the last training course that you went on? What are you doing to develop yourself? What was the last research project you did?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I mean, keep learning, keep growing, right?
Yeah. Keep learning, keep open, keep being relevant.
Yeah. What would be then your kind of closing statement? If people are listening on this kind of whole skill shortage topic, what do you want people to walk away and leave here with in mind, front of mind?
Really to be confident in themselves, to believe in themselves, to be open, to learn, and to believe that they are on the right path and all is well and all will be well.
Amazing. Well, Jane, thank you so much for your honesty and your insight today. It's been invaluable. And of course, for continuing to lead by example, everything that you're doing, showing up here, delivering this talk and helping others find the influencer in themselves. It's all truly, really, really appreciated by us and all the industry. So what I take from this conversation is that solving this skill shortage isn't just about the hiring or the technical skills. It's important. And we need to change the way that leaders are thinking about the people that they're hiring, the talent they're looking for. But it's that point of how do we shape and lead the industry that we want to build? And MSPs do have this opportunity to redefine themselves as not being just this back office support operation, but actually leading by example. Especially with the advent of AI, we need to keep evolving. It's staying static is not an option in the modern world. So thanks to everyone for listening in and for being part of this next chapter of the story. I've been Myles from the MSP Global team, joined by Jane here. Thank you so much again. And we'll see you all very soon for the next podcast interview. So thank you again.
Thanks, Myles.
Thank you.